They came at dawn, sails billowing like phantom wings across the Aegean Sea. The Greeks, heroes of legend and vengeance, arrived on Troy's golden shores, their bronze armor glinting under the merciless sun. For 10 years, their war cries would echo against the city's impenetrable walls. This is the story of the great siege of Troy, a tale of love, betrayal, and the wrath of the gods themselves. The seeds of this war were sown not on the battlefield, but at a divine feast high atop Mount Olympus. Eris, the goddess of discord, had been excluded from the celebration. Furious at the insult, she threw a golden apple among the gathered deities, inscribed with the fateful words, "To the fairest." Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite each laid claim to the prize, and their rivalry threatened to split the heavens. To resolve the quarrel, they turned to Paris, a Trojan prince tending his flocks on Mount Ida. Paris was no ordinary shepherd. Unknown to him, his bloodline carried the weight of prophecy. It was foretold that his birth would bring about Troy's destruction, a warning his father, King Priam, had ignored in a moment of mercy. Now, standing before the three goddesses, Paris was offered unimaginable gifts. Hera promised him power, Athena wisdom, and Aphrodite, the most dangerous prize of all, love. Her promise came in the form of Helen, Queen of Sparta and the most beautiful woman in the world. When Paris chose Aphrodite, he sealed not only his fate but that of Troy itself. Paris's journey to Sparta was cloaked in deceit. Welcomed as a guest by King Menelaus, he violated the sacred laws of hospitality by seducing Helen and spiriting her away to Troy. It wasn't just an act of passion, it was an affront. The Greeks rallied to reclaim their honor, assembling a coalition of kings and warriors. Agamemnon, Menelaus's brother and ruler of Mycenae, led the charge, his lust for conquest barely concealed behind the veneer of justice. Among the Greek ranks were figures who seemed larger than life. Achilles, whose mother Thetis had dipped him in the river Styx to render him invincible, save for the fateful heel she held him by, was their deadliest weapon. Odysseus, cunning and sharp-tongued, brought strategies that would outwit even the gods. And then there was Ajax, a mountain of a man who wielded his shield as if it were a fortress. Together, they formed an army that filled the horizon, their 1,000 ships forming a wooden armada that darkened the seas. When they landed on Troy's shores, it was as though the wrath of Olympus itself had descended. The Greeks razed the coastal villages, cutting off Troy's lifeblood and striking fear into its defenders. But Troy's heart lay behind its colossal walls, an architectural marvel said to be crafted by Apollo and Poseidon during a time when gods walked among men. Inside the city, King Priam ruled with wisdom born of age, but it was his son Hector who became Troy's hope. Hector, a warrior of unshakable honor, fought not for plunder or glory but for the lives of his people. He stood in stark contrast to Achilles, whose insatiable hunger for fame drove him to unspeakable acts. Their rivalry became the heartbeat of the war, a contest as inevitable as it was tragic. The siege dragged on, each year more brutal than the last. The gods too took sides. Athena and Hera lent their favor to the Greeks, while Aphrodite and Apollo shielded the Trojans. Zeus, ever the arbiter, watched with detached interest, ensuring that neither side tipped the balance too far. Then came the duel that changed everything. Achilles, consumed by rage after the death of his closest companion, Patroclus, challenged Hector. Beneath the shadow of Troy's walls, the two warriors clashed in a battle that seemed to pause time itself. Hector fought with the strength of desperation, but Achilles was a storm made flesh. His spear struck true and Hector fell. The sight of Troy's champion slain broke the spirit of its defenders, and the war entered its final, devastating phase. Victory, however, would not come from the sword but from the mind. Odysseus, ever the tactician, conceived the ruse of the Trojan horse. The Greeks built a colossal wooden horse, hollow within, and left it as an offering to the gods. Feigning retreat, they withdrew their ships to the horizon. The Trojans, weary of war, brought the horse into their city as a trophy of their endurance. That night, as Troy celebrated, Greek warriors hidden within the horse emerged, opening the city gates to their returning army. The carnage that followed was swift and merciless. Troy burned, its towers collapsing into ash, its people slaughtered or enslaved. The city that had stood as a beacon of power and culture was reduced to ruins, its legacy preserved only in the songs of poets and the whispers of history. The Great Siege of Troy was not merely a war. It was a crucible of human ambition and divine meddling. It gave us heroes whose names echo through the ages, a cautionary tale of pride and the consequences of a single choice. And as we recount the story, one question lingers. Did it truly happen, or is it a myth born from the imaginations of our ancestors? One thing is certain: Troy, whether real or legendary, has become immortal.